I have a dirty iPad, and I want you to look at the face on it. If you can see a face in there, it's kind of weird, but it does show a face. Okay, I hope I don't run out of space by the time I get this right here done. I noticed in my last video that I had some that was really loose. So I'm trying to go through and I'm going to pull each one of these to make sure that it's tighter because it's too loose. And as you can see, it will work. Okay, let's see. Going down. And, come on, don't do that. Okay. And we're going to pull them to try to make sure. And, don't forget you got little knots in there where you put them together. If you have to do this. So I'm just taking it slowly and pulling each one of them through to make it a little bit more tighter. And of course I have to hunt for the thing that needs to be tightened. Can't get my finger on that one. And I'm hoping. Nope, I ain't yet. So where's it at? Okay, where are you at here? Let's see if we can't find you. Okay. Let's go with the next one. I'm going to try to get this one. Okay. We're going to have to go one at a time through here. Got a knot there. No wonder it wouldn't go through. But, hey, we can get it. I know I can. Yeah. That's a knot right there. Let's see, is it? Okay, here it is. I get my finger on it. Nope, that ain't it. We'll just have to figure it out as we go. Okay, that's not it. I don't want to. There it is. There it is. Yes. Okay. Pull that one. Now pull. Nope. But I want to try to get them all. Oh, don't do this to me. Alright, I'm going to figure this right here out and get it a little bit more tighter. And then we'll be back. Alrighty, I had to take it apart. Take each one of them off until I got it tight enough. Like these down here, they're loose, but I'm hoping they'll tighten up when I go to do it. I hope I can sit down and do it now, so that it'll be easier on me. Alright, let's see if we can get back busy again. And see if we can't get Leave that one right there. Look there.
I pay her taxes. I have every right to speak about her in particular within her role. I'm not talking about where she lives, what she looks like, anything like that. Nothing personal. This is purely professional and this is purely governmental. Can I continue?
Try to keep it professional.
I've already told you what I'm doing, and I'm making that very clear, and I'm not going to change.
Keep it professional.
I have not. I have only kept this professional. You were debating me, and you were violating your own rules. I'm here to talk as a parent. I've got 2 young boys. We live in Glendale, and when they come of age, I am deeply concerned about their educational prospects in this city. I'm also a taxpayer. I pay a lot of taxes in this city, many of which go to this district. And I'm deeply concerned about how that money is being spent, particularly, and I'm going to single out a person at the in the school district named Dr. Kelly King, who's sitting right here to my left. Dr. Kelly King makes over $250,000 a year. Every 4 years, we give her $1 million. We will be paying for her pension for, the duration of her life after she retires. And she's doing things that I completely disagree with, and I think many members of the community would also disagree with. Previous speakers have mentioned the number of Armenians who live in Glendale. How many Armenians would support what she does? Let me discuss what she's doing. In a recent video in 2017, she reflected Glendale Unified Policy when she stated, and I'm going to quote, "We have a lot of resistance from male coaches who are horrified at the thought of having a biological girl changing clothes in front of them." Which biological girls are changing clothes in front of coaches in Glendale Unified? That's a question I'm genuinely asking. She continued, "It's not a girl. It's not a girl. It's not a girl. You only have boys in the boys' locker room." She just said it was a biological girl.
May I just stop
I'm
for a
speaking
moment?
now. You're not. No, I'm speaking.
I
This is
will-
interrupting my time.
Well, we
Can I
can
pause
pause
this,
the
please?
time. Can you pause the time for a minute? I only want to say that to refrain from personal attacks. So please.
She is a government official. She's a government employee. This is not a personal attack. I pay her salary with my tax dollars.
Again, please talk towards the policies that you
I'm
are
talking about-
against
and
and refrain from personal attacks, and your time will continue. Please go ahead.
In what way have I personally attacked Dr. King? She is acting within her official role as assistant superintendent at Glendale Unified. How is that a personal attack? I'm talking about tax dollars being used in a way that I disagree with. I'm going to continue.
Continue talking about the policy that you disagree with.
Dr. King quoted to say that biological girls were changing in front of male coaches. And then, so she knows it's a biological girl, and then proceeded to say it's not a girl 3 times. You know it's a girl. You know it's a girl. Or you
Okay,
know
so
it's a
she's
boy.
an
You know
employee
it's a
of
boy.
ours, and if you wouldn't mind telling us what policy you dislike.
There is why am I being interrupted for speaking about an official member, a superintendent at Glendale Unified, speaking in an official manner? You cannot interrupt me for that. You have no ability to do that. And furthermore, the rules stated you won't debate. You're debating me right now. Correct? I'm going to continue. In discussing permanent records, she states that she keeps permanent records for a handful of trans students literally next to her in her room. She does not indicate that person's gender identity for fear that the parent might find out. Why is she concealing this from parents? She says, we kind of go out on a limb, and we know that's controversial to some people. Which people? Which parents? Armenian parents? Christian parents? Are those the ones who are being excluded from knowledge on their own children and their own identity in Glendale's Unified School District? And you preach inclusive policies. We can talk about that policy. Yet she's excluding parents. She's excluding parents. I'm going to continue.
And I might just ask for a pause and ask for information. Maybe I'm mistaken. Can you pause the time for a moment, Mr. Sahakyan? Thanks. So I wouldn't mind getting input in terms of, is this?
So my understanding, again, is that we are the arbiters of policy. That is our decision. And so our employees are operating based off of our direction and the direction up here at the dais. So it is appropriate to criticize the policy. It is appropriate to question that. It is not appropriate to personally attack and denigrate a specific employee. I do not believe that that is covered under the public comment.
I'm not personally attacking anybody.
Yes, you are, sir.
No, ma'am, I'm not. I'm not personally attacking her. I disagree with what she said in her role as assistant
So then you
superintendent.
disagree with the policy, so please continue with the disagreement of the policy.
I am disagreeing with her, and this is not, you are debating me right now. You said you would not debate me. Why are you debating me?
So you're using that particular thing inappropriately, the fact that we don't debate. So
I am not
please,
attacking her personally. This is under her official role as assistant superintendent at Glendale Unified. You are not allowing me to speak freely in a government entity about a government employee. I pay her taxes. I have every right to speak about her in particular within her role. I'm not talking about where she lives, what she looks like, anything like that. Nothing personal. This is purely professional, and this is purely governmental. Can I continue?
try to keep it professional.
I've already told you what I'm doing, and I'm making that very clear, and I'm not going to change.
Keep it professional.
I have not. I have only kept this professional. You are debating me, and you are violating your own rules.
So,
You are
Mr.
violating your own
Sahakian,
rules.
go ahead and open the time again.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kelly King has worked with Gender Spectrum, an organization which you guys have actually paid money to in several schools. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. She's worked with Gender Spectrum to produce gender support plans. In these gender support plans, she ranks parents whether on how affirming they are on a scale of 0 to 10. Who determines that? Based on what criteria? I'd love to know that policy. She says, if the parent's not affirming, the parent may not be involved in this document. That's the gender support plan. This may be a private conversation. So let's talk personal now, because she is. This may be a private conversation between that trusted adult at the school. Is that adult trusted by the parent? Who is the trusted adult? Define trust, please. This may be a private conversation between that trusted adult at the school and the student about how we keep you safe at home, emotionally and physically. Who's personal? Who's professional? Personally, I'm being professional. What she has done and the policies none of you have spoken out against is a complete deviation from that sacred boundary between government and personal lives and privacy, especially of minors. And we're talking about sexuality, sexual identity, and you're not going to divulge that to parents intentionally. And again, she makes over $250,000 a year. Wow, 43%, only 43% of Glendale Unified High schoolers are proficient in math upon graduation. Only 65% are proficient in reading. And you pay that much money to institute those policies while you're failing, literally failing to produce the adequate students for the 21st century. Thank you so much.
I confess I'm a little confused, and I appreciate the argument or discussion that we've been having, but for me it's a little too conceptual, or I don't know, metaphysical or theological or whatever you want to call it. I want to try to understand what you're asking us to do. Let's take two books that have been much discussed. The first one is called All Boys Aren't Blue, and I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All boys aren't blue. The second is another much discussed book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called Genderqueer. Okay? Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote, I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me. End quote. Now, Mr. Secretary, what are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available to kids? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay. Tell me what you're saying.
Well, first of all, there's this...
Don't give me a speech. Tell me what you're asking me to do.
With all due respect, Senator, the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's point.
What are you advocating for?
We are advocating for parents, random parents, not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
You're getting conceptual game.
I'm not getting conceptual.
Well,
I'm saying that
you are. Yes, you are. Because I want to know what you're recommending. It sounds to me like what some of you are saying, the librarians should decide who gets to see that book.
I'm saying when individual parents are allowed to make a decision of where that line is, and To Kill a Mockingbird, which involves a rape scene, should that book be pulled from our libraries? I think it becomes a slippery slope.
I think you ought to think about it a little bit more before you come here.
I've thought about it,
Senator. If you're going to propose something, you ought to be able, in 30 seconds, to be able to explain what you're asking us to do. Ms. Kelly, what do you understand? Well, let me skip you for a second. Mr. Cameron, tell me what you're proposing.
It's pronounced mix.
Mix? Is that how would you like me to refer to you?
Senator, your definition of sexual is synonymous with LGBTQ identity.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you to tell me you read those two excerpts.
Genderqueer.
Do you think that, are you asking that only librarians and not parents have any say in whether minors can read those books? Is that what you're saying?
Genderqueer has never been in my school library, so it's never been banned.
Well, suppose it was. Should it be up just to the librarian, or should parents have a say?
There should be facilitation of collaboration between students.
Should parents have a say?
Parents should be working with students and educators to be making decisions, because students are...
And who decides ultimately? The librarian, or do you take a vote, or who takes the vote?
Book review committees in the community in my school district.
You want a committee to decide?
There are committees.
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, how do we decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available in the library? What would you, if you were running things, what would you do?
All Boys Aren't Blue, the scene you mentioned, is about sexual abuse.
I know what it's about.
It's not
What
erotic.
would you do in terms of making the books available? Would you say anybody can see them, or they have to be in a special session?
Students who do not read books like All Boys Aren't Blue cannot learn what is appropriate.
I understand that.
They cannot learn.
I understand, but none of you want to answer my question. You come here and you say censorship is bad, and of course it's bad. But the obvious response is, okay, you heard the books we're talking about. Okay, we're not talking about Catcher in the Rye. So tell me what you want, who gets to decide. And all I've heard is the librarians. And parents have nothing to do with it. And if that's your response, what planet did you just parachute in from?
Parents, Senator...
Or what country, more appropriately? This is not China.
Parents, Senator, with all due respect, parents absolutely have a say. My parents were immigrants, came to this country. We never checked out books without our parents seeing what books we were reading. They encouraged us to read
Mr.
books.
Secretary, I understand this is good for your politics back home.
It's got nothing to do with my politics. My bill is
Of course
passed.
it does.
My bill is
It has
passed.
everything to do with your politics.
I'm here to...
But you came here with a problem, and I'm trying to understand the solution, and you don't have one.
We solved the solution.
Other than to tell us that we don't agree with you, we'll be on the wrong side of history.
We solved the problem in Illinois. We fixed it because we
well, there are others you could work on.
Well, that's why I'm
out
here to
of
help.
time.
Who does this sound like to you? There I beheld the Ancient of Days, whose head was like wool, and with him another, whose countenance resembled that of a man. His countenance was full of grace, like that of one of the holy angels. Then I inquired to one of the angels who went with me, and who showed me every secret thing concerning this Son of Man, who he was, whence he was, and why he accompanied the Ancient of Days. He answered to me, "This is the Son of Man, who righteousness belongs, with whom righteousness has dwelt, and who will reveal all the treasures of that which is concealed. For the Lord of spirits has chosen him, and his portion has surpassed all before the Lord of spirits in everlasting righteousness." Despite what you may think, the text I just read doesn't actually come from the Bible. It comes from an ancient scroll that was buried deep underground more than 300 years before Jesus Christ walked this earth. Now, let's examine that ancient text a little closer and see what we can find. So in this text we have the Son of Man, who accompanies the Ancient of Days. He looks like a man, he's full of grace, and righteousness belongs to him. The identity of the man in this ancient text is unmistakable. There can be no confusion or doubt as to who this text is referring to. There was only one person in the Bible who is called the Son of Man, and that is Jesus Christ. In fact, Jesus is referred to as the Son of Man dozens of times in the New Testament, as well as in the Old, in places like Psalm chapter 80, verse 14 through 19, and Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14. But that's not all. In order to fully understand the true significance of this ancient text, we must take a journey back in time, all the way back to 1946. Just outside a small village in the country of Jordan, or, as we know it today, Israel's West Bank. It is here where our story begins. One day, a Bedouin shepherd was tending his flock in an area known as Qumran when he suddenly fell into a hole in the ground. When he got up and looked around, he realized he had fallen into a cave of some sort. But it wasn't just any cave. As he looked around, he discovered the interior portions of the cave were filled with large clay jars. Intrigued, he opened the jars and discovered what is known today as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, over the next few years, archaeologists went on to discover 11 caves in Qumran that were filled with ancient scrolls. The oldest scrolls were dated to approximately 300 to 400 BC. That means these scrolls were placed in jars and sealed up 300 to 400 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. So, what's in these scrolls, you might ask? None other than the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, or, as most people know it by, the Old Testament. But that's not all they found. Some of the scrolls didn't fare too well over the 2,200 years plus they sat in the jars. When archaeologists opened some of the jars, they found the scrolls had somewhat disintegrated, leaving fragments of the scrolls. However, these fragments still had visible words on them, and miraculously, they were able to combine the fragments and slowly piece them together, and nobody expected what they were about to find. Hidden deep inside cave number 4 in Qumran, one particular jar held something that would go on to send shockwaves through the world. These are actual translations from Aramaic to English of scroll fragment 4Q530 and 4Q531. Quote, "The scribe Enoch, a copy of the second tablet that Enoch sent, in the very handwriting of Enoch, the noted scribe, in the name of God the Great and Holy One, to Shemhaza and all his companions. Let it be known to you that not, and the things you have done, and that your wives, and that their sons, and the wives of their sons, by your licentiousness on the earth, and there has been upon you. And the land is crying out and complaining about you and the deeds of your children, the harm that you have done to it, until Raphael arrives. Behold, destruction is coming, a great flood, and it will destroy all living things, and whatever is in the deserts and the seas, and the meaning of the matter, upon you for evil. But now, loosen the bonds binding you to evil and pray." Scroll 4Q531. They defiled, they begot giants and monsters. They begot, and behold, all the earth was corrupted with its blood, and by the hand of. giants which did not satisfy them, and they were seeking to devour many. The monsters attacked it. Now, let's go back to the ancient text that we read in the beginning of the video concerning the Son of Man, and consider this. The fragments I just read are from the very same book that describes Jesus Christ, the Son of Man. Simply put, the Dead Sea Scrolls contain portions of a book that lay out the entire gospel of Jesus Christ 300 years before he walked the earth. How is that possible, you might ask? Let's read it together. And this is the second parable concerning those who deny the name of the dwelling of the holy ones and the Lord of spirits. They shall not ascend to heaven, and they shall not come on the earth. Such shall be the lot of the sinners who have denied the name of the Lord of spirits, who are preserved for the day of suffering and tribulation. On that day my elect one shall sit on the throne of glory, and shall try the works of the righteous, and their places of rest shall be innumerable. And their souls shall grow strong within them, when they see my elect one, and those who have called my glorious name. Then I will cause my elect one to dwell among them. I will transform heaven and make it an eternal blessing and light. And I will transform the earth and make it a blessing. And I will cause my elect ones to dwell on it. But the sinners and the evildoers shall not set foot on it. For I have seen and satisfied my righteous ones with peace, and have caused them to dwell before me. But for the sinners there is judgment impending with me, so that I shall destroy them from the face of the earth. And there I saw one whose face looked ancient. His head was white like wool, and with him was another being, whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me, and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he came, and why he went with the Ancient One. And he answered and said to me, This is the Son of Man, who hath righteousness, with whom dwells righteousness, and who reveals all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of spirits has chosen him, and whose lot has preeminence before the Lord of spirits in righteousness, and is forever. And this Son of Man whom you have seen shall rise up the kings and the mighty from their seats, and the strong from their thrones, and shall loosen the reins of the strong, and break the teeth of the sinners. And he shall put down the kings from their thrones and kingdoms, because they do not exalt and praise him, nor humbly acknowledge who bestowed their kingdom on them. And he shall make the strong hang their heads, and fill them with shame. And darkness shall be their dwelling, and worms shall be their bed. And they shall not have hope from rising from their beds, because they do not exalt the name of the Lord of spirits. They raise their hands against the Most High, and tread on the earth and dwell on it. And all their deeds manifest unrighteousness. Their power rests on the riches, and their faith is in the gods which they have made with their own hands. They deny the name of the Lord of spirits, and they persecute the houses of his congregations, and the faithful who depend on the name of the Lord of spirits. In those days the prayer of the righteous shall have ascended, and the blood of the righteous from the earth shall be before the Lord of spirits. In those days the holy ones who dwell above in heavens shall unite with one voice, and supplicate and pray and praise, and give thanks and bless the name of the Lord of spirits on behalf of the blood of the righteous which has been shed, that the prayer of the righteous may not be in vain before the Lord of spirits, that they may have justice, and that they may not have to wait forever. In those days I saw the head of days when he seated himself on the throne of his glory, and the books of the living were opened before him, and all his host which is in heaven above and his counselors stood before him. And the hearts of the holy were filled with joy, because the number of the righteous had been offered, and the prayer of the righteous had been heard, and the blood of the righteous had not been required before the Lord of spirits. And in that place I saw the spring of righteousness, which was inexhaustible, and around it were many springs of wisdom, and all